it's exhausting times when it comes to AI, in my personal opinion, but also we see a shift in how people react to AI in general, because we are all seeing now the limitations, I'd say, of AI, and people want to get more than they thought, and everything goes only with AI. And that's where we have to put on the brakes and go back to our tool agnostic concepts and workflows to understand what is a productivity system, what are the different parts in your life, and then translate it into a productivity system and all this, so you understand really what you're building there. And talking about building, we did a lot, Paco and I, this year when it comes to building with AI, something we never thought would be possible in the past. And here we are. We built, well, the whole membership platform, but also the MyPKA folder, for those who follow us, is, well, it's not built by AI, but it is built for AI. So it is easier to build other things with AI, and especially knowledge systems. And that's where it became really exciting, the knowledge management using AI. And this is the interesting thing. I published a video in April talking about this folder approach and how I can organize my documents, and people were celebrating this and how amazing this is. Now I see people coming to this old video, new people, and I say, what is this? I mean, that's nothing. And that's where you see how fast time moves. 6 months ago, something was very exciting, and now people are swamped with all these different solutions that under the hood might be a bit of a different color, a different approach, different buzzwords they are using. No pun intended here with the buzz that was published, and many things. And that's where we should talk today in general about, well, let's start by sharing screen, and you can see the very first post from today is something about this 36 rule violations in 32 days. So that's a lot about AI going off rails, and that's something more and more are noticing. And that's not a problem of AI. That's a problem of a system. Well, obviously AI plays a major role, and the LLMs. So how much does it stick to any rules? How much does it read through the same thing maybe several times to ensure it really gets it right? And that's where people establish loops, and you heard this already, the loops, and that's where we have agents just there to quality control and have quality assurance to whatever we create, so it double checks if what I asked for was actually produced in the end. And to me it was obvious, because I never trusted that it is 100% perfect outcome. But we see this more and more, and there was another one with a pretty obvious image here by Daniel, right? Very frustrated here. I want to fire my team. Hopefully he's not firing his team with a firearm in real life. But the thing is that I understand this frustration, and we see also the comments that people can relate, and me included. And here I posted below, for those who are interested in our members, how we compensate this. And I think we can actually go through these 4 points here to have a guidance, where the overall issue is the forgetting problem, the not sticking to rules problem. And here's one major thing that I mentioned here, that Paco and I both concluded, and that we might not have been vocal enough in the past, is the QA agent that I mentioned, all right? So it's always good to have an agent inside the rules that double checks the results before it goes back to me. So that's something I had very early on, because I realized there's a lot of back and forth between me and AI going on whenever they deliver something to me. And I replaced myself with this agent, and it has the rule to do the back and forth until it is at the level where it's ready for me to hand over. So the QA agent reads the guidelines and so on to double check if the team aligned to the documentation inside this folder. So that's one thing. But you see here as well the code and scripts implementation. And that's really crucial to have this in place, where, and I show in a moment another example with this, where we tell the team to do as much as possible using code or scripts. And that's really interesting, because that was also the conclusion by Mike here. He also mentioned that he added Claude code hooks and pre-write checks and size guards and so on. And that's exactly the right approach.
It's exactly what we said in the last weekly session.
In the coaching
that we
session
had.
too, correct. So if we go here, coaching sessions. So if you haven't seen it or you didn't attend, that's exactly it. Fixing AI, rule enforcement, Git conflicts, and PKM foundations. Here we had our whole live session with our members that we have every week, discussing as well this. And that's where we're doubling down. down. Paco, you already mentioned today that you are writing an article, right? So these articles are always perfect because then we have it set in stone, perfect guidelines. So cannot wait for this one.
Yes, the point is that I think that we went too far by using AI to build a productivity system, and also in a pretty short time. So people didn't have the time to digest the knowledge, to create the right structure, and then to code it all. Okay, I think that that's the moment that, well, again, it's always the same story. Okay, the same story that happened with open tools, like for instance, ClickUp or Tana or any Notion, any tool that allows the user to start customizing the system. It's the moment that this becomes really risky, and the moment that we go into AI that allow us to do anything at all. I think that it's the the perfect tool to go crazy into any deep rabbit hole, and then it's when people get lost. Yeah. Okay, the moment that you don't have boundaries, the moment you don't have a framework, the moment you don't have a methodology behind, is the moment that you get lost. Okay, due to too much freedom. Okay, we always want freedom. We always speak about freedom, flexibility, open source, all these type of things, and at the end we need restrictions. Okay, so that things don't go off rails, and that's what we do with the methodology, and that's in fact what we have done. Okay, I remember that in the early days we developed an insane amount of features for our own AI productivity system at an individual level, and both of us are right now simplifying the things, streamlining the things that really matters to us, and leaving for the current tool stack, the tool stacks that we always used, to keep doing their job. Okay, in my case, for instance, there are key tools like, for instance, Tana or ClickUp or Linear or Todoist. Okay, those are 4 core tools that for me are crucial, and I don't want to overlap my productivity system by developing features that I can perfectly run in any of those tools. Okay, because right now I have to say that serious tools have amazing APIs. Okay, that in my opinion are much more trustworthy than any MCP. Okay, talking about how you connect to external tools. Okay, there are 2 main ways: MCP or API. API is the way it was done before AI and MCPs, and now it's so easy to do it that from the user perspective, you cannot find a distinction, okay, between doing these 2 type of connections. And we encourage the people to use the API with these pretty well-established tools because the results are amazing. Okay, I have no problem interacting with any of those tools, Tana, ClickUp, Linear, and Todoist. Okay, and with them, I got it all. Okay, I got a note-taking and PKM tool. Okay, that is useful for me to help me think, because that's important. We need to keep thinking, because it seems that we have completely outsourced the thinking process of humans to AI, and that's not true. Okay, I need to think so that the input that I deliver to my AI system is much better, so that the outcome is much better. But once I have done that, I need to figure out where to store that. And we started storing them in the old tools, okay? And we concluded that it's much better to create your own database or your own files so that you can have control of the things that you need to store, okay, based on the outcomes that AI reply. But the thing is that you need to simplify as much as possible so that your AI system doesn't become a huge beast that starts consuming your time, the maintenance, and, well, at the end, you are dedicating time to your AI productivity system instead of the things that matter to you. I mean, your own life or your own business. And I think that that's important, to set the boundaries and trying to remove as much as possible from your AI productivity system, talking about the customized part that you have developed and built. Because if not, you're going to go crazy, because you're going into software development, and most of our professionals are not software developers because they are some other things, okay? And this is not our main goal, okay? To be all day long developing, improving, polishing, fixing bugs, well, all the things that are attached to a software development. And I think that that's what people are being aware right now. Okay, they thought that this was pretty easy, that AI will do absolutely everything, and at the end they have a mess, okay, that it's impossible to manage. And I will end up by saying that the thing is that this started so simple, okay, that people thought that this simplicity was able to deliver complex things. And I refer to this by going back to, for instance, April or even a little bit earlier, okay? Because this started as giving AI access to your own computer, and there the AI was able to read files so that you can start storing the outcome, so that you are generating kind of a memory of what AI has delivered to you. And that was a starting point. And people thought that, yes, telling AI to read some markdown files and storing the outcome of the prompts, that was it. And with that, they wanted to deliver amazing software system that it's impossible to handle, okay? But with that approach, because that was a simplistic approach, just to make some, kind of memory, a kind of, instructions, okay? But we see that the more intelligent the LLM becomes, the more you need to trust on deterministic approaches, that is code, okay? It's impossible. The moment that you start leaving AI to go to a text file, a markdown file that has instructions, AI, due to its intelligence, is going to start creating interpretations of the content of those instructions, and then the outcome will be completely different in each iteration. And I think that that's what drives crazy everyone, included us. That's why we concluded that code was necessary, because the moment that the LLMs becomes much more proactive, intelligent, you name it, okay, it's the moment that they start making interpretations of the instructions that you have delivered to them in plain text, okay? That's why removing the text part of instruction when it's not necessary and using instead code is the only way to really ensure that the moment that you have a crystal clear defined workflow that is exactly the same, and you want to be exactly the same in each iteration, is the moment that you need to trust on code that follows sequential steps that never fail. And I think that that's where we are right now, and that's what we are trying to tell our people.
Correct. And one thing is code and scripts to keep AI in rail, but the other thing is, and that's how we started this, and that's where people got excited, is the structure. So that's where people realized, oh, okay, if I give AI a proper structure to organize information, it works much better. And that's still true. But I want to again share this post here. This all comes with complexity. And I ran into the same issues where I added more instructions. I changed the way how we design elements inside my ICOR, for example. I complete rebrand. I changed the way how I create thumbnails. Many things like this. I said, well, update any documentation and guidelines related to this. So moving forward, we use the same thing. And every now and then, it suddenly comes up with the old design. And then I said, where did you find this? That's the question. So I can trace down where it found it, because we handed over all this control to AI, which is still in a local folder and readable, but nobody's reading it anymore, as it's so much to go through. And that's where I realized it's not thorough enough. It is not going into each detail. And that's where we see also a lot of reports where people are handing over something and say, read the whole thing, and it never does it. Even if it is capable of doing it, so it's not doing it. And that's also due to a lot of optimization that's happening to the LLMs to save tokens, to make them more efficient, to make them faster. That's where we see now where people say AI is getting dumber. This is the reason. It's no longer thorough enough. And then you have things like Fable. And I just had this on X. Eve posted here, I've been struggling implementing a feature using Opus 5, going back and forth, picking up dump mistakes. One-shotted a voice note to Fable and it was built in 10 minutes. And that's the insight that I found out too when I recently was building a whole new application that we might show in this session too. But also working on anything inside our membership. I'm not doing anything below Fable anymore, because I realize it's skipping things. And that's really, with all the guardrails and so on, that's really something I noticed as well. And the more this happened, the more I ensured the system is set up properly, that anything that can run through code or scripts actually runs through scripts. So one example would be publishing a YouTube video and inside the membership. So whenever we publish something here, like I publish the videos with a blog post as well attached and so on, and the details, and Paco is publishing his articles. Okay, so we both don't do this directly on my ICOR. We do this inside ClickUp. So let me open this up so you see it in context. And that's, by the way, exactly the way that we did it for years before even AI was a thing. Okay.
And I think that that's something important.
Here, I think
people think that they need to complete change absolutely everything, and that's not the case. Okay,
No.
the thing is bringing AI where it really delivers leverage. Okay, and I think that that's important.
And that's the point, because we had this foundation before. We were already highly efficient in the business with everything that we had available. And then we used AI to further offload work that we had to do manually or that we delegated to other people before. And here is the situation. We have here these ClickUp tasks. Each one represents one of my videos. So you see it's in workstreams, content production, YouTube channels. Okay, that's a list where all the videos are in there. And this is it. This is the video. There's the content, the blog content. Here's the meta fields where we have the stream for our membership. There's the link on YouTube, and all these things need to be filled out. That's something I did in the past manually. When I finished editing the video, uploading it to YouTube, I filled out these things. But then ClickUp was always connected to Airtable, which was a database tool that we used. And Airtable was syncing them and publishing this to our website and also inside our membership. We used Mighty Networks back in the time. Okay, so this automation was always in place. And I don't want to say automation, I would say the workstream was always in place. There was a step when this was set to publish, which is still the case. There's an automation running that, let me close this and we see the automation. You see here, there I have these automations. I can also click here to see it better. See, these are all the automations that are running on this list. So for example, when a video URL added to a specific field, it changes the status automatically to upload. If the due date changes, while it is uploaded, it changes to scheduled. When the scheduled arrives, one of these things is it, then it changes to published. Okay, that's what automatically happens. So I can set up a due date here when I want to publish the video. The moment this due date arrives, this status switches then to published. This triggers then the publication also inside the other tool, whatever we want, because it's an API, it's a trigger for other tools to pick up. And in the past, it was Zapier that we used, okay? For those who don't know, Zapier, one of the most reliable automation platforms that you can use. And that's what we used. It was looking for any changes inside ClickUp. The moment this switched to published, it moved this content to our Airtable tool, and therefore it published it automatically on our website. The same thing still happens now inside my ICOR. We build code. So when this changes, now we have directly code that is running on our own platform that it publishes now inside our membership, right? Like here, and it appears like this. It picks up the title and the video and so on. So all this is great, but what is not great is filling out these custom fields using AI. If I tell AI the 100th time, and that's where I personally noticed it most, I finished creating the video, I uploaded it to YouTube. The moment I say, okay, everything is ready, now fill out the task. I even give the link to the list and ClickUp. Now fill out the task so we can publish it on my ICOR too. And there are guidelines, there are SOPs, documentation, everything written down. It doesn't care. It doesn't care at all. It fills out the description suddenly with some random things where it just should actually be the blog post. All this is defined, but it doesn't stick to the rules. And that's where this also, that was one of the first things I replaced with code. So AI just runs these scripts and codes, checks out the meta fields, what is required and what is still open, and therefore it knows what is still missing to fill out and not relying on read first the documentation. Now bringing everything together what we talked so far, it makes sense, right? Because I just mentioned AI doesn't read a full book or document that I give it to read. It just predicts what is in there. It fills in the gaps. And that's exactly happening with your instructions too. And that's why we need to go into code the moment complexity grows in your system.
Correct. And the thing is that the moment that we mention code, people think that they need to become developers or know about coding. And that has nothing to do with what we are saying. Okay, it's just forcing your AI system to develop that code for you, because at the end, you don't care about how AI does the things. The important thing is getting things done, okay? And the moment that you start, if you have a crystal clear defined workflow that is exactly the same, you cannot trust that in a markdown file where you write down or tell AI or an agent, okay, to write down those steps and think that they're going to be executed perfectly one after the other in each iteration. That doesn't happen anymore. And no matter that you are even using the exact same LLM, talking about the model or the effort or whatever, because right now we got a lot of combinations, okay? We got different models, we got different LLMs, we got different setups, okay? That make that all the combinations are, well, completely different, okay? And that's why we need to force through code, and that's what we can tell our AI system, force through code. And that's the main claim, that it's use code over instructions whenever possible, okay? And you need to force those things so that you guarantee that the moment that you launch a process, a workflow, or whatever, the system will follow a straightforward code, okay? And not launching an LLM that is going to make an interpretation of a text file, a text description, or definition of an agent, because that's what drives crazy the people, because it drove us crazy, and that's why we concluded this, okay? Because it's impossible for them to force to absolutely eat everything, and the moment that you have sequential steps into anything, it's really difficult to trust on AI, okay? AI has been thought to really understand things that are not sequential, okay? Things that need an interpretation, things that you want to know the meaning, things that you want to receive a different perspective, a different approach. All those type of things that traditional code cannot deliver, those are the right tasks for AI, okay? And the moment that you balance those type of things is the moment that the productivity system, the AI productivity system, will work. The thing is that we think that we have much more non-deterministic things than deterministic things. So people think that they should bet much more on the LLMs, okay, instead of traditional code. And that's not the case, okay? We have inside our daily workflows much more things that depend on traditional code than LLM, okay? And people think that the moment that they start using code, okay, or scripts, they are missing out about AI features, and that's not the case, okay? And they need to force, and they keep forcing AI to take care of all these type of workflows, and that's the moment that everything goes through the cracks. Because if you have a system underneath, a real system behind everything, most of the things are deterministic, okay? They are workflows that have clearly defined steps, okay? And most of the things, I would say 80-20, the Pareto principle, okay, where 80% of the things are deterministic, and just the other 20% are non-deterministic, so you can bet on an LLM, and then it's the moment that you start leveraging your AI system, okay? Because if it's the opposite, it's the moment, because all of us has complexity in our lives, okay? And we want to make AI work in a complex world. Well, we don't define clearly the rules behind. And the only way to do so, it's by forcing things through code. And that's what we need to try to explain. And that's why we are creating videos. I will create articles. Those are the topics that we talk during our weekly coaching sessions, because people are not aware of this, okay? And it's not difficult at all, okay? We want to remove the concept that you need to be a software developer to use code in your AI system. That's not true, and that's why we double down on delivering this type of message, because it completely changes everything, okay? Because that's what we have noticed, and all our members, okay? The moment that they start bringing code to their AI productivity system is the moment that trust is a reality again, okay? Because when we started with a simple system, well, with a small markdown files, just a small number of agents, okay? With that, well, and the initial models, because I think that that's been a combination of everything. We have increased the complexity of the system, and the LLMs have evolved. And the combination of both, has created, that we are really forcing the things to create complex AI productivity system that we want to force to work by using AI only, and that's not the case. It won't work.
And I want to pick up here the deterministic approach that you mentioned, because again, we always made a connection between AI and how we work with AI to the real world, how you would work with other people. And again, it applies here, right? The people wanted to automate in the past already or delegate it to other people. And this only works if you understand the system, what it is that you can automate. What are the parts that can run on autopilot versus what are the parts that you need to intervene to give in your input and so on. And the same applies when you have people that you're working with. You can give them as many guidelines and SOPs as you want, but there will be always the case where people don't stick to it. And that's why in certain companies where you in pharmacy and so on, you can go to jail if you signed that you read and understood these things and you still don't align to it, then you go to jail. Okay, so in hard terms, but you cannot tell this in a normal marketing agency. I don't think that you have this when they sign their contract. But even then, in the contract, I guess, in every employee contract, you have to align to the rules and so on that we say. Do people always do this? No. And that's the point where we need to have an average, reliable system. And system is not a tool. The company itself is a system, how it works inside the company. And the same applies here. We need to figure out what are the parts that we really can set in stone, that we can automate, so the in-between steps or the handover between the different process steps is perfectly prepared. So the code is preparing the content for handover to AI or to the employee or to the client as the outcome and so on. And this is what we need to identify, and then you can work against it. And in this regards, I see here a comment from Mike. Can you explain how you ensure that your orchestrator is prompted to write code rather than prose for getting them to behave in the way that you want? And yeah, so this is where I usually just say, and Paco, you did this also in your tool that you built for yourself. I say in workstreams that I have, so recurring processes, I went backwards and I said, okay, look up whatever you can actually convert into code or scripts and do the least amount of that. So that's the strange thing, because the prompt itself again has the option now to fail. So it creates a code or a script, but it will, again, for everybody else, will create different things. And that's what I shared in this video here. Claude sucks, and here's why, where I was testing the different models, and we had here Haiku asking, can you create a Venn diagram? And that's what Haiku came up. So I was comparing the models, but what I pointed out in the video is not that the models are bad between each other, but if you run the same prompt through the same model many times, you will always get a different result. And that's why I think people are so fed up on YouTube seeing the creators where they say, look at this amazing website that I built here. You can download my prompt here. And also the prompt engineering and all this, it will be always a different outcome, because what people should do who say, this is all you need to do and this is how it works, you would need to validate this. You need to run it at least, well, you need to qualify it even more than 3 times to really prove that the same outcome will always be the same with the same prompt, and it will be never the case. So in this video, I made a very vague, with full of spelling errors and so on, prompt. So the interpretation was very wide by LLM. It didn't, it made these sliders and so I never asked for, and many things that differed between the outcomes. So obviously, the more specific I am with the prompt, the more likely it is that it nails it at the first time. But even then, if I repeat the same prompt, I will get different outcomes. And that's when I, for example, then create plans or let AI create a plan or research. I sometimes run 2 sessions in parallel with the same prompt just to see what it comes up with in different, and then I let it prepare. Actually, it is the agents themselves who are running several of the same agent, and then they compare their outcomes with each other to see, especially when they do online research, if this is really, well, even hallucinated. That's something coming back a lot. And these are the guardrails. But for this question with how you do it, I don't know, Paco, if you have any input.
Well, for me, I have a really simple CLAUDE.md. That is the first file that any session will read, and there I emphasize the concept of code over instructions as much as possible. But the thing is that the moment that I deliver any feature, any automation of any process, I constantly force in the requirements, in the feedback, in all the back and forth that I have to maximize the part of code, okay, until the AI tells me the cons of using code for a specific feature inside that feature. And for me, that's the thing. The moment that you force the thing and ask it, how did you implement this? You see the plan. Why here cannot you use a script instead of this markdown file, whatever? It's understanding, and that's what people don't understand. They think that by using AI, they need to forget absolutely about everything and give the full control to AI. And that's not the case. You need to know what you are doing. That's why it's so important to have behind concepts and workflows and the knowledge, because one thing is not knowing about code. If I need a semicolon here, a capital letter here, two parentheses here, that doesn't mean that's syntax. That's what I refer about code. But the concept of the workflow, the process that you want to implement, it has to be crystal clear for you, because you are an architect, you are the decision maker. And based on that is the moment that you keep polishing and polishing and polishing the things, and also guarantee that when an outcome comes out by code, you take additional processes to verify that the outcome is correct. You know, the moment that I receive an outcome coming from any of my agents has been checked by a lot of different scripts, okay, so that it's totally polished. And even though there are moments that I receive, you know, things that for me don't work at all, okay, but that's a number that is decreasing. The more you iterate in a workflow, the more you ask for it directly, because there's a moment that there's no way out for AI, okay? It needs to reply directly to you, okay? And the moment that you start giving no options to AI, okay, it's the moment that you understand the problems or the things that you are missing in the case you are not using AI for a specific feature that you are implementing. And it's in that moment that you say, well, for this, it's okay. But for instance, the outcome will be stored in this field in the database, and then it's the place where you take this from. For instance, I was suffering a lot about generating the titles of my articles because the number of characters, something so stupid like that, it was completely random, okay? It had no sense. And then what I did is force through code, and by code again, double down until I finally end out with a process that is so streamlined that take code to the maximum, okay? And I just took advantage of the AI too, okay? Because I want the limitation, talking about characters, but I want AI to deliver to me different options, okay? Based on the content of the article, of the different titles of the article itself. And that's how you combine both things, okay? And people tend to mix things up, okay? And then they get confused. Why the heck, for instance, you know, the text of the title of anything, okay, it doesn't fit the requirement, no matter that they have repeated, because this is not a matter of repetition. This is a matter of repeating the reinforce of coding to the agent, to the AI system, okay? And that's what, it's not a matter of repeating 100 times the exact same thing. It's a matter of forcing AI to use code as much as possible. And I would go even beyond, because the moment that you see that AI should be brought to into a scene is the moment that you can start, well, making experiments using LLMs for specific steps of this work stream and see if it's really worth it or not. And I think that by doing that, it's impossible. I mean, there was a workflow in where, well, I measure in percentage, okay? And there are workflows that I exceed 95% of just code for things that I don't need AI there. It's so extreme. It's like, for instance, imagine all these triggers, these automations that we have just shown on ClickUp on a markdown file and tell an AI, follow these instructions. It will be chaotic, okay? It will be chaotic, okay? And for instance, what Tom had just said, the moment that I send, for instance, all the information of my articles to ClickUp so that we can publish the article, that goes through code, okay? I got access thanks to the API. I perfectly map out the fields by code, okay? This field in my database is this field on ClickUp. And by doing that, it's impossible to miss. If you delegate that to just instruction in a markdown file or an agent, okay? Because people think that the moment that they tell something to an agent, it will work perfectly. And that's not the case, okay? Especially if you don't know what you are doing, because that's also something on top of everything, okay? People delegate things and then let AI do whatever they consider, and that will never work.
And again, there's a perfect example from corporate, and there AI was not a thing, not even productivity tools. Todoist and Evernote was the first thing rising up at this time, right? But there was the same issue working again in a high-stake company where a lot of Excel sheets were used to manage the work. And there, a person started the Excel sheet, they added some columns, they named them in some way. Nobody had a clue. Everybody interpreted a field name completely differently. And then people manually added numbers, project numbers, things like that. So it was a mess when it comes to manual managing these things, and you're letting different people use the same thing where there needs to be very strict information, like for example an ID of a specific row inside the Excel sheet. And if people add this manually, you will get duplicates, you get missing IDs and all this. And that's where a database comes in, and that's what I introduced then inside this team too. We switched from an Excel sheet to a SharePoint database, and therefore people had no choice. The moment they created a row, an ID was already automatically given just by creating a row. It's a unique identifier. And the same was then for required fields, where we knew, okay, there's just a set of things that people can put into the field, and you shouldn't write these things in manually. So there is just a drop-down list of things they can choose from, and therefore it will be always the same data. So therefore you increase the data integrity, and the data became more reusable. You created dashboards, suddenly having proper diagrams and so on, because it's real data that you have there. And this is something that I suffered with working with humans already, and there was already the solution also. You can call it code if you want, but it was the database approach. And we are here in the same situation where we need to apply this to AI. And the people who are struggling with this, people who are complaining about AI, they might need to look into, and here we close the loop, into the tool agnostic approach on how they work in general, where they store information, how they retrieve information, how they manage their tasks, where do they look up their guidelines and so on. So if this is not clear yet, then it's not clear how you apply it to AI. And that's what we teach inside my ICOR. And this is where our courses come into play, where you learn exactly these things. That's something we said since day one when people joined just for an AI video that I put on YouTube showing the folder and how it works. We always said this is all based on the understanding of how our productivity system works. Our AI inside the folder works according to the concepts and workflows. So if I say, especially here the project management like a pro, right, for the AI team, they know how to store information, how to retrieve it, how team communication works, but the same is for PKM. So the folder that you can download includes this My Life concept that we teach. This is My Life, and My Life is structured in these 4 buckets that we always use. And we use this in Tana, we used it in Notion, we used it in Heptabase, we used it in Obsidian. It was always the same. And now we use it in our AI system or in the folder that we provide to AI with the instructions how My Life works. So it knows now when I create a journal entry that whatever I talk about, is it actually aligned to a key element of my life, or is it just a general topic? And that's how it automatically generates these links of the information. And if you don't understand this, that AI runs based on this, if you use this folder, then you cannot understand when it goes off rail. You don't notice it until it's too late and you say, that's weird, and it's coming up with random things because you never were able to actually spot that something is going wrong. And again, I cannot say often enough that how this relates always to real life too. I saw, Jeff, your comment when you identify a repeating area producing poor or inconsistent results, how do you determine what can be refined in SOPs, contracts versus what you would move to scripts and code?
For me, crystal clear. Yes. Tell your AI to fork through code as much as possible, okay? And because I think that by doing so, it will work, and make little tests, because that's always also something that we see in people, okay, that they tell AI something and they don't test. They think that, and that's a beautiful thing about AI, that right now we can run tests insanely, I would say.
And I think,
run 10 tests, because people think that now they don't need to test anything at all. No, but
well, they've never been used
AI
to testing.
Can run
that's
the
thing,
tests,
exactly,
okay?
right?
Yeah, correct, and because I think that at the end, it's a lack of systems theory behind, okay? The moment that you understand what a system is and how your system works, it's really difficult to go off rails. Of course, it will go, but you know how to fix it, and you know how to tell the AI system what you want. And here it's important what we have just said, for instance, the exact same way that an outcome, it's previously checked by AI before delivering to me the final outcome. We need to run tests whenever we try a workflow or whatever, and do some testing right now. For instance, imagine that you are generating or creating the feature of the agent that create the journal entry properly. Well, tell the AI to make 10 different tests and see the outcome and check the outcome, and then you can fine tune in and fix it, okay, on the go, and say, oh, I received this outcome. Why was it? Did you use code to deliver this outcome? No, I was interpreted, sorry, because it's always the same story, okay? No, sorry, I went off rail, and the own AI is telling you, okay, that is using instructions and the why behind that outcome. I know that it sounds like slow, but it's the only moment or way that we have found to create something you can trust on, and thinking that once it's done forever, okay? The moment that you streamline perfectly any work stream, it will change your life forever. Imagine the moment that you start trusting on as many workflows as you have, that's our case. It's fantastic. And the moment that, for instance, due to a new model or a new version of a model or whatever, things start failing, you can quickly fix it. Obviously, you have some days, hours, or whatever of transition, but pretty quickly you are leveraging your system, because normally, okay, and that's what we have seen with the newer models, things go better normally, okay? We can mention multiple exceptions, but the rule, if we need to compare Opus 5 with 4 from 5, I think that there's no Fable with Opus, exactly the same, okay? I think that the better the model, the better the outcomes, and also using the correct model for the correct operation, because I think that that's something that it's also important.
Yeah, that's something that I published in the video, right? Using the right models. And that's always something. And the effort level and many things that come to it that can impact how well they work. And it's, again, the same rule. People want to spend no money at all, but get the best outcome. So that's just not how the world works, unfortunately. But also I want to add my interpretation of the question from Jeff here, because whenever I have a recurring area, right, that's what he said here, and that's the best part. If you have something recurring, then you can identify issues very easy, because you get different outcomes each time you have a recurring thing. And what Paco said with testing, that's one thing where I can run tests, but I can, and that's what I did in the past. I realized something is strange, it's not following the rules, and I said, visualize to me the work stream end to end in different boxes, the different process steps. So I was able now to visually look at the different steps that AI is going through to identify maybe things that make no sense at all. And that's exactly what I spotted there. And that's how I say, make an audit of this. Audit is a very important key term for AI there too. The moment you say that, it becomes really to dig deep into a specific issue. That's what I noticed, at least. And another thing, and that's just a very small teaser of what we are building on here right now is this new app. Okay, we call it ICOR for Life. It's coming for the Inner Circle members too. And that will be, well, it's the tool that I use for my own knowledge management and life management, but also will teach how to implement the ICOR principles and building productivity system end to end. But I'm showing you this now here because there's a section that I introduced workstreams because I wanted to visualize this, and I show this in many different forms on YouTube already, how I try to approach to visualize the workstreams better. And here you see already in this format, it says 75% code, 57% code. So here I forced now the things that it actually shows me the different process steps, and then it shows me exactly what is running code and what is actually AI doing the intermediate step. So that's a complete different, well, not complete different approach, but much more strict approach how workstreams get created in this new format. And this is something that now based on percentage, I immediately see what is more likely to go off rail and what is very deterministic, where I can be sure, and where's even steps that needs my input and so on. To me, that's the sweet spot to have transparency versus too much to read and so on. And here's then even the connected documents where then everything goes in much more detail and so on. That's obviously a test run I have here showing. It's not the finished work, but I thought I want to show this because we are very well aware of these things, and that's how we are counteracting it. But there's no way around to actually learn and understand what you're working on. It's blindly handing off the work to AI and not having a generalistic understanding of what is going on. It's not about, as we mentioned several times in the session today, it's not about understanding code, syntax, and all these things, but at least understand what would I delegate to a person who is an expert, and this would be the code part, and what can be my personal assistant doing who has just a broad understanding of things. So that might be also a different perspective on these things. Okay, one last thing, and then we stop because we are over time already. Mike says here, Paco, earlier you mentioned the part of your agent.md file that emphasizes code over instructions. Is that part of the file something that you can share with the community? I guess that will become part of the article that you're writing in general, how to, And it's
I will.
the others. It's always interesting to think.
I won't say the due date, of publishing, because then I get trapped. Pretty soon.
We don't do that.
Pretty soon. Let's do
it's done when it's done.
Deadline.
It's done when it's done because we want to ensure the quality is there. And well, let's share some nice words here too. Mike says, it is always interesting to see what you are developing. It is so true that you cannot blindly hand off to AI. Exactly. And Jeff says, Tom and Paco, you're the only people out there living on the leading edge of every changing AI LLMs that provide straight and honest insights and information based on what is obviously a part of your day-to-day life and not a generic reproduction of canned information that is out there. So appreciate all you both share and provide every day. Thank you so much. And we thank you so much. Well, Jeff is 3 years in the meantime. He's with us already. So we have all a long journey behind, and those who are following us long, we didn't evolve out of AI. It's just another step on our journey until we die. Oh man, see, we had the thing with a rhyme. Okay, guys, we catch you up next week then. Bye-bye.
For sure. Take care. See you.